It's the SKOR North Twins Show.
We're gonna win, Twins. We're gonna score. We're gonna win, Twins. What's that baseball song?
Just swept out. Man. You know, sometimes I think it's sort of cliche, or it's an easy hot button to push when you talk about a professional sports team that quits. Like, we do it in hockey and football all the time because these are physical sports, and that team is losing and getting beat and they quit. But it's like, I don't know. Usually they aren't quitting. They're just not good or getting beat or whatever. This team quit. This Twins team, to roll over like they did against the Marlins and against the Orioles at the end of the year. I mean, it was really telling against the Orioles because mathematically they were out of the playoffs. But we're going to go through the Joe Pohlad comments yesterday. We're going to go through Derek Falvey's comments. By the way, everyone is staying intact. At least Falvey is staying intact, and Rocco Baldelli is staying intact.
Yeah.
But
well, there'll be Fall Guys.
I have a couple theories I want to run by you guys.
Fall Guys. Yep.
But the Twins are getting hammered on social media here this morning and last night. So they put up, it's just like a generic Photoshop templated thank you Twins territory with like 6 photos of fans having a great time either at a concert at the ballpark or at a game. It just says thank you Twins territory with a heart. And every single comment, except for like maybe 1 in 20 is, hey, I had a great time with my wife at a Twins game. And then the other night, I'm going to read through these one by one. This is how fans feel about this baseball team right now. You lost the fans in the clubhouse. The players checked out because of ownership. Sell the team immediately. Tell Pohlad to sell the team. Sell it to someone who wants to win. Then someone photoshopped, instead of thank you Twins territory, F you Twins territory. Worst owners in professional sports. Sell the team if you have no interest in spending any money to improve them. Laughed my ass off at the ratio. Just got this in email format. Clicked on it because I figured there was a message instead of just 6 random pictures. Spoiler alert, there was no message. How very on brand for the Twins. I mean, hundreds and hundreds.
I was going
of these
through
types
them
of
last
messages.
night and chuckling pretty consistently.
It's hard to be more tone deaf than the Twins putting out the house is on fire and they are the blinking dog or whatever in the middle of like that meme that you see. You've got one of the biggest collapses in recent Major League history, and the Twins are putting out these like, thank you Twins territory, we love you Twins fans. Well, and then they hide the owner and the president of the chief baseball officer. He's a C-level, Derek Falvey. They hide their season-ending press conferences in the middle of a Vikings-Packers game. I mean, where do you guys want? Because we have a million quotes we can get to. You tell me where you guys want to start here on the SKOR North Twins Show today.
Well, I want to start with what we talked about after we got done with Ventline yesterday, which is, and this didn't apply to the Vikings, but I saw the news. I think that the Twins, to your point, hid Joe Pohlad behind the Vikings game. I think he talked at Dex, approximately 2:00 or shortly before that. And I told you guys, I think it was 28-7 at the time, Vikings. I spent the rest of the game irrationally angry and annoyed by the fact that by the fact that these clowns have continued to make a mockery of this whole thing. I mean, first of all, Joe Pohlad runs the team. Like I don't care if he likes cameras, he doesn't. He took on the job to run the team. This is not a bank. In fact, I saw a story because I did a bunch of Joe Pohlad research last night that the family banking business really wasn't for him. So I'm doing something else. So, okay, dude, you're running the baseball team. You don't have the option to say, well, I don't want to be, but no.
But he does have that option.
No, he does,
took
but
it
it's moronic.
Last night.
But it's moronic, and it's why people are telling the Twins to F off. So I spent the rest of the game and rest of the day, and I'm still irrationally annoyed by the complete, to use your term, Phil, tone deafness of this entire approach. There's a lot to talk about, but I just want to tell you, as a person that watched, and we all did watch this team closely, perhaps no one more than Declan, to end a season in which you collapsed, in which, as you said, there's some very questionable things about how the players approach things. I mean, okay, don't use the word quit. Became so disheartened they didn't know what to do. I don't care what you say. Like this was not a, as I think it was Joe said, I don't make decisions based on a 6-week sample size. Well, dude, this is pro sports. You need to look at that. So I just want to start with the fact that I am still upset today by seeing an organization, which includes some people that I consider to be at least friends with, to be this tone deaf, this stupid in how they're operating, and have turned themselves into, and it's the Twins. They've won 2 World Series. I've loved them as a franchise since '78, have turned themselves into a clown car. It bothers me.
I want Phil to read some of these quotes from Joe Pohlad, or before Phil gives some stuff here. But these comments about getting the fans back is what I think absolutely set me off yesterday. And same thing with Judd. At 1:30, I'm watching a 28-0 Vikings game, and I am irrationally, and my wife even was like, "What is wrong with you right now?" And I'm like, "The Twins. I'm very upset right now. I'm not at the game. Vikings are fine. They're up 28-0. It ended up being a lot closer than it should have been. But I'm upset about something completely else. And the comments about fans wanting to be back in there, the payroll apparently not going to be cut, which also I have questions on that we can get into later. So let's read some of these quotes and react, because I think a volcano is about to erupt between all three of us.
There's a lot of quotes here. So we'll start with Joe Pohlad on Derek Falvey. And again, I will say, I'm not a fire for the sake of firing guy. Sometimes we just want to head on a platter. I want to know what is the solution. First of all, I want someone to identify that there is a problem. And this was strike one on the Joe Pohlad press conference yesterday. On Derek Falvey, he says, I don't judge employees off 6 crummy weeks. He's got 8 years of a resume, and I talk with Derek daily. So I know what he's doing. He's busting his ass. He's the right guy. And I'm going to poke at that. 8 years of a resume. What resume? I'm not demanding that he gets fired, but let's not talk about his 8 years as a resume like he's Theo Epstein circa the early to mid 2000s here.
Yeah, he's got a World Series.
I mean, his resume consists of 8 years and 1 season of over 90 wins, 1 playoff series win in 8 years. And by the way, in 2 of the last 3 years, 2 of the biggest collapses in franchise history. So this year, they had a 97% chance to make the playoffs on August 17th. They had a 92% chance to make the playoffs on September 6th. Down to 0%. 3 days before the last game of the season. They didn't even get to the last weekend of the season with competitive games. It was over. And then people forget about 2022 this is the only year in 8 years, 2022, where Derek Falvey has been aggressive at the trade deadline. All right, we've got a shot here. We are in the thick of this thing. Let's make some moves. The moves were Tyler Mahle was hurt. The moves completely backfired on them. I like the aggressiveness, but strategically they made bad moves. And they take these liberties with injured pitchers too. But they were 7 games over 500 in August of 2022 and made big trades at the trade deadline at the end of July. 7 games over 500. They finished 6 games below 500. So in a month and a half, they dropped 13 games in the standings relative to 500. So no, it's not just a 6-week stretch. And no, it's not an 8-year resume that you would scoff at the notion that his job should be evaluated or the work that he's doing. Like, let's calm down, guys. He's got a resume of 8 years. Well, let's compare that resume. If your goal is to win a championship, and we will get to more quotes where clearly the goal is not to win a championship, compare his resume to the top 5, 6, 7 front office leaders in baseball. How does it stack up? Are they even doing that exercise internally? Or do they all just want to be friends and have this thing go away? That's my question. Any comments on I don't judge employees off 6 crummy weeks, and he's got 8 years of a resume. I talk with him daily. You guys need to calm down.
Just keep going. Like, he just buries himself more.
So huge credit to Aaron Gleeman from The Athletic. Aaron Gleeman was part of a very small group of assembled media that was in the room for this sort of tucked away end of season media availability. And Gleeman asked some pointed questions, and I'm just going to go through the Q&A. Gleeman to Joe Pohlad. You said you have to make business decisions, but does a sports franchise necessarily need to be treated as a typical business? Or can it be treated as part of a bigger community and you're the stewards of something that involves thousands of people? As you look forward, is this going to continue to be treated as just, well, revenue went down, so payroll goes down? Or is there a different view of a sports franchise? You own a lot of businesses. Is this just one of them, or is this potentially viewed differently? And Joe Pohlad said, I view my job as running our business on behalf of this team and our fans. I'm trying to manage our business so that we can put a winning team on the field, both in the short term and the long term. But sometimes things come up. Whether there are a number of different things, I'm not going to get into them. But then business decisions need to be made. I'm not going to get into those types of decisions, but it is both long-term and short-term in terms of how we are describing it. So yeah, the goal is always to have a winning product on the field where fans can come and get excited about their team. So Gleeman followed up and said, well, because of the performance on the field, but also the fan morale coming into the season, I'm sure whatever your internal projections were for revenue probably fell somewhat short this year.
Yeah.
Does that almost become a cycle, and that if you lower payroll, fan morale, and the performance on the field goes down, and at the end of the season you say, well, revenue went down, so we need to lower payroll again, and it just repeats itself? And Pohlad said, if we have a winning product, regardless of what our payroll is, I think fans will come out.
So let me get this right. You get off to this weird start. 7-13, I'm talking about 2024. 7-13. There was also a bunch of home games early, but it's like 38 degrees. All right, some stuff out of your control there from a scheduling standpoint. You rattle off 12 straight wins, and then from May 1st, and there was a couple bumps in the road, swept in Cleveland, Yankees and stuff. You had a winning product for the majority of this summer. This collapse started August 19th, okay? There was one game this year that I was at, one game where I really felt electric atmosphere from the fans. It was the doubleheader against Cleveland on a Friday night. Game 1 and Game 2, especially Game 2, the place was packed. It was rocking. It was loud. Wallner delivered a huge home run. The place erupted. I even asked Rocco Baldelli about, didn't this feel like kind of like a playoff game? I know it's only August 12th and you don't want to get ahead of yourself, but doesn't this feel, did you feel that energy? Because I haven't felt anything like that all regular season. And to suggest that they just need a winning product on the field, you took the team last year that was a playoff winning team, and then this team gets off to a slow start but rebounds and is 17 games over 500, and people still weren't showing up, dude. You had a winning team when you cut the payroll and cut the fans off at the legs, and you had a TV situation that went away, and oh, maybe they'll come to the ballpark now. No, that also didn't work. So that notion to me is wild. It's completely inaccurate.
It
sets me off.
It's hubris at its finest, at its highest degree. It's showing, and when we're done with the quotes, I want to get into the fact that in going through things last night, there are moves they should have made, I think. But when it comes to the totality of what I consider to be the most disastrous PR season overall in Twins history, which includes the Victory Sports Gaffe, which is among the stupidest things anyone in this town has ever done, I want to get into the fact that the Twins no longer just have a Pohlad problem. They have a Joe Pohlad problem. And I want to get into what Joe does to businesses, but I will wait.
Let's go through a couple other quotes here. So Gleeman follows up a third question here. Sure, but there is some relationship between revenue and record, and when you miss the playoffs by a few games, it's fairly straightforward to say, would X number of million have helped that? So as you look forward to next season, is it going to be similar in terms of resources given to the front office? And Pohlad said, I'm not going to get into payroll right now, but we will have a better product on the field next year. Of course, shortly after this Q&A, Twin sources told
how stupid
some
is
of the
he?
beat writers
How stupid are you?
that payroll they will not lower payroll again. But that came off the record.
Off the record, they're idiots. These people are. I mean, Joe is an idiot. Like why not just say we're going to keep it the same?
I've got one more here, and then I'm going to read another quote, and then I want to react to it, and then I will give you guys the floor again. So the last quote from Pohlad here is, everybody owns this a little bit, and I played a role in that. Okay, so yeah, he's pie chart of blame. I lowered the payroll. It's been well documented. This is from Joe. It's been well documented, this payroll decision. And as I kind of reflect on my role in all of this, we were at an all-time high in payroll last year, right? Fans were all in. Players were all in. We were headed down a great direction, and I had to make a very difficult business decision. But that's just the reality of my world. I have a business to run, and it comes with tough decisions, and that's what I had to do. I wouldn't make any other decision because that's the business position that we were in. Business, 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 business. We should do a Control F search. How many times did Joe Pohlad talk about the business that I have to run?
Right.
I have a business to run.
Business.
Versus here are the standards that we set for winning. Because, by the way, he said it. He said, if we put a winning product on the field, people will show up to the games. I agree with Dex. It's not that simple because they were winning for a chunk of time, but reasons beyond wins and losses pissed off fans and turned them away and squashed their excitement level before the season even began, right? But if you have a business to run, let's talk about that for a second, because your business decisions, cutting payroll and announcing it 5 minutes after the most exciting end to a Twins season in 20 years, and then striking a TV deal that might have been good for you financially short-term, business-wise, but you knowingly took that deal with Xfinity's expiration date on May 1st. That was clearly not a done deal with Xfinity. So now, short-term business decision. Let's take some money here. Let's lower the payroll, right-size our business, take a check from Diamond Sports Group. Short-term, great business decision, right? Well, long-term, because this is a sports franchise rooted in a community with fans who have emotions, fans that buy tickets or not, right? Did long-term damage to your business. So, like, the amount that he talks about business decisions and I have to right-size the business, it's like, first of all, why are you publicly talking to passionate fans who want the team to win about every professional sports franchise owner, especially in baseball where there is no safety blanket salary cap for you to lean on? They're all running a business. How many of them are throwing out the word business and business decision and right-size business ad nauseum in their public press conferences? If you want the fans to love your franchise, stop publicly treating it like a business with them and treat it like you want the team to succeed. He doesn't talk about World Series. My God, that'd be setting a bar way too high, right? We probably wouldn't be able to hit that bar. He talks more about business than winning, and that's the core of why people can't stand the Pohlad family. That's why they have a huge PR problem.
They do. And yeah, well, first of all, he thinks that you, and I'm talking to you, Twins fans, are stupid. He thinks that you are going to just buy what he says. And the reality is he's not. He's, I believe, 42, silver spooner. I will go through. Like, he brings businesses. The family gives him toys, and he throws them off the top of the building. He is a destroyer, not a builder. He has no clue what he's doing. And I was looking through this. So first of all, just to be clear here, Jim Pohlad is his uncle. So it was not father to son. Hey, son, here's what we were doing. And I'm not saying Jim Pohlad was good, but I think he had a little bit of a conscience. Joe Pohlad has none. He is Bob's son. And if I'm not mistaken, Bob is largely what has been involved with the PepsiCo. The Pohlads obviously heavily involved there. But I want to go through, first of all, what I think he's built, which is a fraternity. The Twins have become the fraternity on campus that thinks they're cool, and everyone laughs because they're not cool. People don't want to go to their parties. Their keggers suck. They don't rage well. The Twins, my friend Derek.
Rage well.
My friend Derek, and then here's my friend, and here's my friend, and everyone's like, dude, you're an idiot. No, we're not coming. But the Twins have turned themselves into the uncool frat, and they don't know it, which is absolutely death. The other thing that Joe did is he heard everyone's to blame, and thought, oh, this is great. I am going to give blanket protection to everyone, because if we're all to blame, who do I fire?
We all play it. We all need to be better.
While our fraternity hangs together for an 8th year of college, it'll be great. Now let's get into what Joe Pohlad does. Joe Pohlad destroys. Let's get into his media career, okay? Because I think this becomes very important. Because again, he's a silver spoon kid. He's given toys to play with. He doesn't cultivate. He doesn't build. He's given them. The Pohlads buy radio stations. And now the Pohlads themselves, very bad in media. But they give 96.3, which they purchased for $28 million to Joe. 28 mil. So, Joe's in charge. We even know people that work for Joe. Some of them might be on this very show. And
Declan got a severance.
Worked.
Worked for Joe. And anyway, so by the end of the day, the Pohlads own what was switched from, well, it was switched like 3 times. It was K-Twin, carried the Twins after they took the rights from us, which was fine. That's part of the business. That is part of the business. They go to K-Twin. K-Twin becomes Go 96. I think it was B96 before that. Anyway, long story short, Joe has the stations. He runs them. He also gets, when they purchase, and I think this might have been separately, 95.3. Okay? So 2 stations. Okay, Joe, you go run these. You're going to, in fact, you're going to work on a bunch of stuff that sort of ancillary involves the Twins, and we're going to see how you do. Those stations, $28 million purchase price, are sold for $2.5 million.
Yikes.
They are dragged down to the bottom. They in fact cost the family millions of dollars. An absolutely incredible thing. Now let's talk about the venture into Bring Me the News, which as far as I can tell was purchased by the Pohlads in 2015, with Joe inheriting that because he was in charge of the media company. Okay? Bring Me the News, Rick Kupchella. If you like aggregation or not, you got to give Rick credit. He turned that into a very successful startup from nothing, aggregating things, but he deserves complete credit. And he deserves so much credit that, being the savvy businessman Rick Kupchella was, he turns around eventually and sells it to the Pohlads. From what I can find from the reporting is the Pohlads eventually sold that back to a couple of the original people with Bring Me the News for approximately $1. That's tax write-off.
The dollar thing is very much confirmed. I don't know what they bought it for from Rick Kupchella originally.
I think it was
more than $1.
It was more than $1. My guess is it was into the millions. But anyway, long story short is I was going back through when Joe got the Twins job. I was trying to find, like, what has he done? Like, what does he run? He was involved in, it sounds like early on, in the banking side of things, which the Pohlads were a long time in, and I think still are, and basically decided, this isn't for me. I don't like this. He has bounced from business to business within the family, being given things to run because, quite frankly, as Phil said a long time ago, the family's really not all that curious about how things work. So they put Joe in charge, and Joe inevitably drags them down. Now, I want to give you guys one more thing I read this morning, because this is incredibly telling and it's frightening, and I don't know how to process this one, okay? So, as I said, Joe has created a culture of, in my opinion, a frat. Like it's a frat now. My boy Derek's down, because Joe's got an office there. So he and Derek can go out for drinks or whatever they want to do. As for the Pohlad family input, here is what Jim Pohlad told Charlie Walters last week in regards to the payroll slash and where things are going. Jim Pohlad, who ran this team, well or not, for a long time. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't talk to those people that much, honestly. I wish they would come for advice. I said to Joe, I'm going to stay out of your territory, but I'll be happy to be of counsel for anything that you want, Joe. So far, that hasn't happened.
So much to unpack, man.
So, I mean, basically
So
what
much
we
to
have
unpack.
is maybe the worst person at business in the entire Pohlad family being put in charge of what I would consider to be personally the most important asset to the state. And we have a kid who has no track record of doing anything well. And if you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, then I guess that you could say
Yeah.
Bob, who I do think the brothers who aren't involved are tired of this entire thing. That Bob is very happy to sit here and let this thing burn. So that's trying to absolve Joe, which I'm not.
Yeah, I think, man, there's so much to unpack here. And there's more quotes to get to from the people that work for Joe Pohlad. But at its core, I think he misunderstands what drives his business, the baseball business. Ticket sales, people showing up to the ballpark, people buying things at the ballpark, and then people, especially if you're going to go into a direct-to-consumer model at some point, which they should they should have started 2 years ago, like some of the National League teams.
Right.
Where you're asking people to pay $100, $120 out of their pocket to consume your product, right? You need to get people to feel good about your product. And wins and losses are a huge part of that. But there's other ways to make people feel like, yes, we're all part of this community. We all want the same thing. We all want the Twins to win a World Series. And fans feel like the Pohlad family doesn't give a rip because everything that comes out of their mouth, especially Joe's, is about business, right-sizing business. And if you want to translate that further, it's how can we as owners make money off of you fans? That's what's coming out of his mouth. If he and the people around him would spend more time thinking about how can we make fans feel good about this product. And I've used the Padres example a number of times. The Padres, and they're in the playoffs. Maybe they make a run this year. The Padres haven't been making a bunch of runs. Like they made one run, I think, to the NLCS a couple years ago. But they've had some ups and downs, fired a manager, right? But the Padres at some point 5 or 6 years ago said, you know what? Let's make it clear to our fans by spending money on free agents, making aggressive trades, because we can always find new prospects if we trust our development system, which the Twins have clearly built up a prospect system, right? But let's tell the fans with our actions, spend money on key players and make big trades to bring in major league ready players, household names to make the team good. And tell fans we want to win big. And we're all in this together, right? Yes, off to the side, we do have a business to run too, because we're not in this to lose $100 million. But they're not talking about in San Diego right-sizing their business. They're talking about putting a great team on the field, competing with the Dodgers, and doing whatever it takes as a franchise. And guess what? On the back end of that thing, 40,000 fans show up on average every year the last 3 or 4 years to Petco. Is it still called Petco?
I think so.
Whatever they're calling it, to the San Diego baseball stadium, right?
Yep.
And it's like, that's where Aaron Gleeman's question was 100% spot on. So wait a second. Okay, so you're telling fans that you need to right-size your business, but you're also telling fans that if we put a winning product on the field, we know that you're going to show up, right? And I think fans are now drawing a line in the sand and attendance going down a year after the end of that season is wild. Like usually you make a run and then people pay it off the next year with attendance. To see attendance go down is a huge red flag business-wise. And I guess if I were advising in a PR capacity, I would say, listen, man, stop talking publicly about right-sizing your business. All you're doing is creating a further gap and a wedge between you and the fans. They already think you are greedy, careless billionaires who don't give a rip about whether the team wins or loses or whether a fan comes or stays. Whether that's true or not, that's what they think of you, and perception becomes reality. So number one, stop talking about right-sizing your business. Number two, we need to get fans to feel good about the team and the ownership again. How can we do that? Well, let's start by publicly apologizing for the last 12 months and not tucking that conversation in the middle of a Vikings-Packers game on Sunday with no cameras around. Find a wide open time where the Wolves aren't doing media day, where the Vikings aren't playing the Packers, sit up in front of cameras and say, hey, I own this. The last 12 months, I set a bad tone 5 minutes after the season by announcing the payroll was going to go down. We signed a bad TV deal knowing that it was going to blow up on May 1st. And then we as an organization weren't aggressive at the trade deadline. And as a result, or at least alongside of that, we collapsed in September. And I own that, and I apologize to Twins fans. Now, whether you believe that apology or not, if you start there and you let your guard down and you stop talking about business and start acting like a human being that cares about the community that you are the center of, now we can start to build something. Step 2, okay, let's talk about business. Let's make the fans feel good. Hey, everyone, we're going to be aggressive. We've got Carlos Correa, Royce Lewis, Pablo Lopez, a couple lights-out pitchers at the back end of this bullpen. We're going to go get 2 big-time players in free agency or via trade. We're going to add to this team. We're going to grow payroll. We're going to look to be a big winner in 2025 and stick your flag in the ground. Start there. Stop talking about business. Start talking about winning and start connecting with fans on a deeper level. Sorry, that got long-winded, but
No,
I'm
that's
very
good.
emotional.
and he unfortunately does not care.
You know, like and look, yes, full disclosure, I worked for Joe. That's been documented on this show and on our shows before. I worked at Go. I got hired by Bring Me the News. That was who hired me. At the time, they were still Pohlad owned, and all those Go properties. So Go 96.3 Alternative, Go 95.3 Hip Hop, Twins games, and then a news station. I think all those things in there just siloed are good things to invest in to a degree. The problem was, this is my uneducated/educated view of this, is you had Lumineers playing on the radio and then Twins games at 5 o'clock. I don't think those niches of Lumineers fans and Twins fans are sticking around all the time. So, that's a little confusing. You get the news station and Bring Me the News, which is this, as Judd said, started out as an aggregation service, but really does report on the same news with the same press releases, with the same sources that other news organizations have. And that's a very credible source that they've built up. But then you took Bring Me the News, and you completely rebranded it to your site. And SEO-wise, that killed it. It hurt it, because you literally took a domain and brand and flipped it, and were confused why it kind of plateaued a little bit, and you had to dig yourself out, which Bring Me the News was able to do. So some of those things, yes, are just kind of perplexing, because to Joe's point, maybe, and I'm not defending him, but hey, we were 70-53. We have a core roster here. We have a prospect pool. We're sitting pretty. But also, you've made decisions over the last year. Forget the 6-week sample size. The last year that Phil just laid out, which we all know, that put you in the position to completely miss the playoffs, and you've missed it also. You want to talk about sample size? You've missed the playoffs 3 of the last 4 seasons with a majority of the same core you're kind of talking about here, with the same leadership, too, in Falvey and Rocco. So I think there's a lot of things at play here, but it's incredibly frustrating that these are kind of the comments. I'm a big believer, last thing for me is just, and yes, admitting that you kind of screwed this up and how we plan to fix it. It's one thing to admit you're wrong. How do you plan to be accountable for it, and what is your plan to fix it? That there was no semblance of that yesterday. Zero.
Well, this is where I think if I can make a write that down prediction early. So I think 2 things. One,
Write this down.
it is wild that before the season is officially over, because these press conferences were held before the game on Sunday, that they once again laid down and didn't even show a pulse, that you wouldn't take 5 days, 3 days, 48 hours
To assess, right?
to have
Never
the
seen
season.
this.
The season's over.
Yep.
The season's over. Well, we have those conversations daily. Okay, well, so you at no point then you're having conversations daily, but at no point do you let the season end, take a step away. I don't know, maybe consult with Jim if you feel like that would be valuable. At no point is there any reflection on the leadership of this franchise. It's just immediately first words out of everyone's mouth yesterday. Hey, Rocco's the right guy to manage this team. Despite the fact that the young star player Royce Lewis has been chirping all year about his role and different things. There's clearly a schism between Royce Lewis and maybe Carlos Correa, and Royce Lewis and there's some relationships there that are
for sure.
spilling over publicly in some of these quotes.
Yep.
But without any thought or any evaluation, and not even letting the season end, Rocco's the manager and Derek is the head of baseball operations. So my guess is you're going to see some scapegoats below those levels. Like I could see, hey, it's been a good 7 or 8 year run for Thad Levine, and we'll go find another right-hand man.
We haven't heard from him he's going to be a fall guy?
Years. But I could see that. I could see, let's go get a new hitting coach with some major league experience or something. And those are kind of but it is crazy that you wouldn't take some actual time to evaluate the people that run your business and take an objective 30,000 foot look at that.
If this had just been a baseball meltdown, it'd be bad. Like it'd be bad, and it would certainly be worth being upset about and talking about. But the fact that Joe in particular doesn't even understand how bad this has been from the get-go of him saying payroll is going to be cut. They literally, and whether they like it or not, they put Corey Provis on a conference call. He is our new play-by-play guy on TV. Dick is out and Corey is in. Corey, you tell everybody games are going to be streamed. Blackouts are over, was the quote. You had Corey Provis, who I think is great at what he does and is a trusted voice. You had him lie. You had him lie to the fans because then baseball's like, we can't help you as much. And like, okay, we got to go back to Bally's. You still got a rights fee, but you still cut your payroll as if you didn't get that rights fee. Like, this is my frustration is the August 17th, August 18th on Meltdown is bad enough. But this is the worst, I'm telling you, this is the worst public relations season overall that I can think of from the Twins since they started here.
Yeah, I agree because I think the biggest contender, you mean started as a franchise or
yes, started as a franchise.
I would put it's on the Mount Rushmore. I mean, I would put Contraction late 90s, early 2000s in that mix. Different era too, because I think with social media and the way media is now, everything like.
And I never knew if Contraction was real or just to scare fans. Like that one was, but I mean, this one you've done everything you can to alienate fans. And yes, Contraction was bad too. You're exactly right.
I think
but I'm just thinking about all the different things here. 2011
was a huge PR disaster too, and then you went into losing. I mean, and the attendance went from like 3 million. Under 2 million a few years later because you just put a bad product on the field. A few other quotes here. From Derek Falvey. Rocco is my manager. Rocco and I, through this time, we do a decent job most days, or at least I try to keep a steadiness in the way we go about our business. But behind the scenes, we've been gutted during this process trying to figure out how do we fix it. That's led to sleepless nights and challenging conversations and one-on-one conversations between he and I that will stay one-on-one. But we have been at times really digging deep and trying to figure out how to fix it. I believe in his process. So by the way, 2 guys in a room trying to figure out how they've tanked September 2 out of the last 3 years. Can't sleep at night. Don't have any answers. Well, maybe you got the wrong 2 guys in the room.
Right,
I don't know.
Exactly.
I believe in him. I believe in the partnership I have with him. And this is how I feel. And ultimately, that's the way we are going to go forward. Rocco on the collapse. Quote, "This will bother me forever. There will be no way around that. I will think about it a lot, and I will use it to motivate myself in a lot of different ways going forward because I never want to experience that again." Carlos Correa on the collapse. "If you have anybody to blame, blame me for going down for 2 months and not being a part of the team. I think that's one of the main reasons. The more guys we can get on board to actually put in the work, to actually take this serious, to actually sacrifice a lot to get better, then we're going to end up being a better team. If guys just receive the message and they're motivated for a week or two, that the message sits with them and that's it, then we're going nowhere." And then Royce Lewis, who said he ran out of gas. Royce Lewis said, quote, "It kind of falls on obviously the players, but I didn't realize it was just on us. Now I know that we're going to carry a lot of the load, especially the young guys. The cheap guys is the best way to put it." That's a shot at Carlos. That's a shot at the front office.
Yep.
That's a shot at Rocco.
Rocco. Yep. See you for spring training. Don't forget, the Twins report on February 15th. Tickets available now for all the games at Hammond Stadium. Yeah, that's exactly.
I love how, dude, we were talking about this before the show. I love how, like the White Sox are in the middle of this ridiculous season, right?
Right.
The Guardians have had some fun on social media over the years too. And the White Sox just kind of go into self-aware, tongue-in-cheek mode. A game will end and they'll post like, they scored more runs than we did again, and it's like, all right, we get it. We're crappy, right?
Yep.
The Twins lack that self-awareness in their brand. It's just, thank you, Twins fans. TC.
Because they're the frat that thinks they're cool. Like they think that people are oblivious to the fact that this has become a clown show. I mean, you literally have guys going into the off season taking shots at other guys, at management.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty crystal bleeping clear. Royce Lewis hates being here.
He's not happy.
And I do think it's ridiculous that a guy that young said that he ran out of gas. That to me is not an excuse.
Yeah, right. I would say Royce, buddy. What are you running out of gas?
You're not
for?
running out of gas. You're
Dude,
young.
you're not 40 years old. Come on.
Yeah,
man.
so he
do some cardio. Do some.
He's culpable too. But the fact is, you've got people left and right taking sideways shots, and Falvey backs Rocco. Jim Pohlad backs Falvey. Everyone's working hard. We're all very upset.
Yeah, Joe.
Joe. I'm sorry, Joe. But so everyone's working hard. Everyone is fine, but nobody really. They ultimately, as I said before, they saw this as a blanket way to say, well, everyone is at fault, and that means no one's really at fault.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even label it as a frat. I would more label it as like the older guy who still wants to like think he's really cool with the young people, and the young people are like, your coolness, your product isn't working for me, dude. And like this garbage you're spinning to me is not helping me wanting to buy back in to this team.
But they've created a boys club. Like this is now a cigar club. This is now a fraternity. They're shielding themselves from the public with their own boys club.
I keep going back to my last thought on this, and then there's a lot. By the way, there's a lot of like, okay, if we were to fix the Twins, what are the things that? So we will transition away from this in coming shows, and we will talk strategically about what they could or should do. But I just keep going back to, this is not just an on the field problem anymore.
Correct.
This is on the field, but it's also, this rises up to be a brand issue. Like
Correct.
Their brand is not in favor with the public like it has been at certain times. And it's been, 2010 was like the peak of their brand since 1991. New ballpark, 95 wins. You got Jim Thome hitting baseballs off the flagpole. And then it went in the toilet and it became a punchline for a few years.
Yep.
They kind of brought it back. The first few years of Falvey and Levine worked out really well. The Bomba Squad in 2019. Where it started to turn again is when they didn't do anything meaningful at the 2019 trade deadline. They brought in Sam Dyson, who was broken goods, never pitched again in the big leagues. And then Sergio Romo was 37 years old, was like your fifth reliever, out of the bullpen. And they ran Randy Dobnak out there at Yankee Stadium for to literally pitch on behalf of the greatest home run hitting team in baseball history, the 2019 Twins. Mm-hmm. So they didn't give it a boost at the deadline. Front office, ownership, whatever it may be. And you could sense like fans were starting to turn sour again. The pandemic hits, it gets kind of weird. But they had fans back, man. Like a year ago, through all of it, they had fans back. They spent money on Carlos Correa. They made it to the playoffs. They won their first playoff series in 20 years. Royce Lewis had emerged. That's the highest the Twins brand approval rating had been since 2010. 13 years. And they systematically, all of it self-imposed, systematically flushed it down the toilet in 12 months. But ironically, flushed it down the toilet so that they could make tough decisions and right-size their business. Well, I have a hard time believing that your business is going to be thriving with a really low approval rating among fans who are paying ticket holders and people that will carry your TV ratings one way or the other.
I would love to see the season ticket sales and the amount of cancellations now, and what are they going to go into with? Because if you own a company, do you want Twins tickets now? Like, hey, you want to go to the Twins game? No. If you have paid for years for this team, right? Season tickets, which are super expensive, as Declan knows. All right. Basically, it's a business, and you've been told that, and they're trying to right size it, and quite frankly, that they don't care about you. They're insulting you. Do you want season tickets? So, like, they are, I mean, Joe Pohlad has given everyone a reason to basically say, I was sort of pieced out before. I'm pieced out completely now. Yeah. And we didn't even talk about the guy with the sign in the stadium on Friday who was booted from the ballpark because it was an anti-Pohlad sign that had nothing offensive. It just didn't message correctly.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So, anyways, I don't know if that was therapeutic or if it was just more triggering.
I feel like we might have a part 2 of this episode. Cause I feel like there's a whole other area of, like, with their payroll comments, it's not going down. Like, I have thoughts.
Well, that doesn't mean what people think it is, by the way, because they've got a lot of guys that are going to get more expensive,
Huge
like
ratings.
Pablo Lopez kicks in.
Yes.
So when they say payroll won't drop anymore, that doesn't mean that they're going to add players. You say, well, but they're going to, Kyle Farmer comes off, Kepler comes off. Yeah, but Pablo Lopez gets way more expensive.
Correct. It's more expensive.
Arbitration for some certain guys that gets more expensive. So, yeah, again, I think, man, Joe made it 100% clear yesterday, if there was any doubt, that he is far more concerned with the bottom line of this business from year over year, a very short-term view of this business, than he mentioned the word business exponentially more times than he's ever mentioned the word championship or World Series. And that tells you pretty much everything you need to know. Mm-hmm. So, with that, that's a wrap on the SKOR North Twins Show here today.
Baseball.
I'm curious, maybe there's some people out there, if you made it to the end of this episode and you think, these guys are overreacting. These guys need to calm down. I'd be curious, is there a groundswell of people that are still all in, all aboard, hell yeah, right size that business and do whatever you can on the field? Are we overreacting? Question for the SKOR North Twin Show YouTube comment section. And one last thing, dude, Declan, first year on the Twins beat as a beat podcaster.
Yeah, great job.
Did an awesome job.
Absolutely.
All these extra innings episodes too, which you can find. We'll probably sprinkle some of those in throughout the offseason too. But yeah, this will still remain a weekly show minimum throughout the offseason, and oftentimes more here, especially in the next couple weeks when we're unpacking some of this stuff. But that's a wrap. SKOR North Twin Show here. Click that subscribe button on the SKOR North Twin Show YouTube channel. See ya.